There's Fort Abercrombie State Park across the way there. That's my destination for this hike. I started out at the Tamarack Wildlife Refuge near Ponsford, Minnesota. I hiked through there. I hiked through Frazee, Minnesota, Vergas, Minnesota. There's the Red River right there. Looks kind of brown to me. After Vergas, I went through Maplewood State Park. And we're on the bridge. After cutting through there, I went immediately west to Earhart, Minnesota, and then Rosse, Minnesota. We got some red rocks on the other side there. Then straight across again to Kent, Minnesota, which is about a mile away from here. And now I'm crossing the bridge into North Dakota. This is quite the event for me. I don't know about you, probably not so. But when we get right over here, we're almost at the end of the bridge. This is going to be a big moment for me. I've never been in North Dakota before. Now, just in a few more steps, I will be in North Dakota. And it's all because of the North Country National Scenic Trail. I'm hiking the route of the North Country National Scenic Trail. There's another look at the state park over there. You can see how windy it is. My lanyard's blowing around. There's some more stuff with the state park. And we're in North Dakota! Yes! There it is! T-Man in North Dakota! Can you believe it?
I've always loved the North Country Trail. That may be a strange thing to say at the beginning of my Ice Age Trail film, but if it wasn't for the North Country Trail, I probably wouldn't have hiked the Ice Age Trail. I was doing these week-long backpacking trips in Minnesota on the North Country Trail, and every time I came back from those trips, I was completely worn down. So I decided I better get in a little bit better shape by hiking the Ice Age Trail near Madison. And one of the first people that I hiked with was my friend from scouting, Bernard Gallenberg.
And he invited me to go along on some of the segments with him so that, one, it'd get me out of the house and doing something physical, and two, it provided him with somebody who might be able to walk either with him or against him to make the hikes go a little bit better for him.
We were hiking all over Dane County. We were out at Cross Plains, at Table Bluff, Indian Lake, Lodi Marsh. And Bernard's a really great person to hike with because he notices stuff that other people just don't see.
All right, ever since I was a little kid, I've enjoyed Our Wild America with Marty Stauffer. Yes, okay, so it was a series where they kind of staged some of the animals with treats and stuff. But anyhow, I've always been interested in animals and the out of doors. And so years ago when I went to college, I thought, gee, wildlife ecology would be a great major for me.
Bernard is now a nurse in North Platte, Nebraska. But he used his wildlife ecology degree when he was out hiking.
As far as us, mostly what we've seen are various birds. And of course, you hear the chickadees calling and they always, lighten my mood with their little song. And you see and hear blue jays and various woodpeckers. We've been fortunate enough to see bald eagles. We've seen various hawks.
And we also saw an alligator. Yeah. Back then I was getting interested in doing some trail building, so I contacted Mike Stafford.
I first met T-Man probably 3-4 years ago when he joined us on work weekends on the North Country Trail in Copper Falls State Park. And he kind of showed up wanting to help out on that, and it was a while after that that I realized he was also involved with the Ice Age Trail.
And you know what I found out? They were doing a backpacking trip, and it was open to anyone. So I decided to join in on that. But first, I needed to do some practice hikes. I remember this one hike where I was doing a road walk down near Dayton, Wisconsin. It was from the Brooklyn Wildlife Area over to the Badger State Trail. And I parked my van and I hiked, and then I rode my bike back to the van.
Oh, I was walking down the road from my segment of the Ice Age Trail onto the road, and I see this guy walking at me with a whole bunch of gear on a bike, and he's walking the bike, and he was coming up a hill. So, but he just had way too much gear on him to be a standard walking around the block type guy. So, anyways, I had to stop and talk to him, find out if he was hiking the Ice Age Trail, and he was.
I gave Jared one of my I Saw T-Man cards, and he emailed me later on that night asking about doing some hikes together. But first, I went on that backpacking trip.
Well, I first went on a backpacking trip with T-Man on the Ice Age Trail in the Medford section, I believe, of the CHEQUAMEGON.
That was the backpacking trip that first opened my eyes to what the Ice Age Trail had to offer in northern Wisconsin. It was a beautiful fall weekend, and I think the highlight for me was walking on that hemlock esker. I've hiked on an esker before, but this one was a lot bigger and a lot longer. It was just incredible.
Well, one of the highlights for me was that, and I'm not even sure what river it was, but it was the bridge that the Ice Age crew built over the river, and we camped just on the other side of it. That was a huge bridge, and I was just pretty impressed with you know, with the size of it and the strength of that bridge and the length of it.
We're going to take a look at it. This is Mobile Skills Crew 2012. There's the Yellow River. Doesn't look like much of a river now. I suppose in the spring it's something to behold. And now it looks like one big rock bed down there. Here we go to the other end. I know why Mike Stafford loves that bridge. The Heritage Chapter could use 2 big bridges like that across the Tyler Forks River to get us over to Wren Falls. That's why he loves that bridge. After I got back from the backpacking trip, I started hiking with Jared. And one of our first hikes proved to be really entertaining.
See this old bucket truck, you know, for working, you know, for cutting down trees or working on power lines. Anyway, it was just ancient, but it was sitting there and this guy's lawn. So we stopped and looked at it for a minute, and Todd took a picture. I think we made it about a mile down the road, and this SUV pulls up, this big SUV with this little girl in it. Are you guys with Google taking my pictures? So this lady, she didn't have a clue, but anyways, she thought we were putting her farm on the internet, and I think she was trying to stop it, but it took a long time to explain to her that we were just walking down the road.
I showed her my maps of the Ice Age Trail and gave her my I Saw T-Man card. And I finally convinced her that we are not from Google.
In reality, I understand why the lady thought we were from Google, because I think every 3 feet, Todd actually takes a picture, you know, especially when you say, hey, look at that. So he has a tendency to pick up this camera and snap, I think, before he even looks. But, you know, that's Todd.
I have the best collection of photos of the Ice Age Trail on the internet. It's something like 10 to 15 photos per mile. All you have to do is Google T-Man Ice Age Trail and you'll find the website. Isn't it a little ironic that I mentioned Google right now?
Todd brings along this friend. He's something with Boy Scouting. I didn't know a whole lot, but you know, okay, if he's in the Boy Scouts, he must be an okay guy, right? So, anyways, we set out to do this hike, and next thing I know is I'm freezing. I'm almost shivering. And this guy takes his coat off, and when he takes his coat off, he takes another layer off.
I had been walking, so I was sweating up a storm, so I was down to my t-shirt.
The guy's freaking walking in his t-shirt for several miles of the coldest of the cold on the Rock River. If you can imagine, just wind whipping across the ice, and he's just standing there in his t-shirt.
As I'm a little bit larger, once I get moving, I build up a little bit of steam, and so, of course, I'm sort of got the moniker T-shirt man.
We started going up and down this side of, I don't know, the Rock River, I guess. Anyways, you know, on the trail. And we see this couple at the bottom of the hill.
So we talked with the couple, and I gave the young lady an I Saw T-Man card. Later on that night, she emails me saying that right after we left, her boyfriend proposed to her.
We're talking loud and, you know, bringing, you know, three-way conversation just down in front of this couple, not realizing that we are stealing their engagement moment. It was just freaking hilarious. We just didn't know it at the time.
Jared and I continued hiking together, and we made it all the way over to the southern Kettle Moraine State Forest. And we had a really nice hike over there.
The trees were all hanging down in front of the trail. We couldn't get through, so we started tapping these branches with our hiking poles, and the snow would just fall down, and it was a lot of fun.
Oh, it's a winter wonderland. We got another one coming up. I'm still shooting. Oh, look at that.
I don't know. I think I'll remember that hike forever, you know. It was great.
So that was about the time when Jared and I discovered the 1,000 Miler Wannabe Facebook page, and we were connecting with some other people.
We first met in Antigo on quite a lengthy hike that I had set up with Jared. I actually didn't know T-Man as well as I did Jared. We had done some conversations, so my wife, T-Man, Jared, and I met for what would end up being quite a interesting hike in Antigo.
I grabbed my buddy Todd, and we're headed up north to meet this guy Will, you know. It just freshly snowed in Antigo, and a couple feet of snow. We didn't even know what was going to happen, but I think we were all new to snowshoeing at the time too.
I think we bit off a little bit more than we could chew.
You should really hear this story. We're walking along through this, what we feel is a field, and with these snowshoes, and we're taking turns. Who's going up front? And we're just exhausted because trying to get through this snow. And we look over and we realize there's a basketball hoop right there. We're in a parking lot and we can't even get through it.
We're at some YMCA camp, and I made the mistake of taking off my snowshoes thinking it would be easier. But then I was really post-holing.
We finally got to the edge of the road, or close to Bogus Swamp, and it was the most beautiful road walk in the world after that.
We're walking down the road and all of a sudden we see the sign for the Bogus Swamp, dude. And we just had to take a photo there to show everybody our excellent adventure, man, you know? But the really bogus stuff started happening the next day.
We were enthusiastically trying to reach a trailhead, and I had not noticed that we had gone from a unpaved road to a forest road.
The road turned, he kept going straight. Next thing you know, we are waiting for a tow truck and just kind of sitting there shaking our heads no.
You've been pretty busy this weekend? Yes. One of the busiest weekends of the year. Really? Wow. Making some money. That's good. Not from AAA all the time, though. No, AAA's not so good. You're going to be famous on YouTube next week.
I never posted that video for a long time because I just met Will and I didn't want to embarrass him, but you know, on the 1-year anniversary he was fair game because we hiked a lot together between then. But I think the main thing that happened on that ANTIGO snowshoe hike was that we all really hit it off really good. Jared and I were doing some more local hikes in the meantime, but a couple months later we went back to ANTIGO with Will, and this time we had a couple more hikers, Tess Maroney and Betty Strait.
Basically, the entire hike I was focusing on getting to the Hillbilly Hilton because I was really intrigued to see what a camper would do on the section of the Ice Age Trail, and just going and opening that door and then kind of having a picture of us as a team on top of the hill was a great accomplishment.
My big highlight of that weekend was Game Lake and the Game Lake Boardwalk. Tess and I were hiking ahead of the rest of the people, and we come to this boardwalk and we're walking across it, and when we get to the far end, I could see the people on the boardwalk in back of us, so I just said stop right there, and they stopped, and I set up my camera and I took a time shot, and at the last second I kneeled down because I thought I was afraid I was going to cut off my head in the shot. But that turned out to be the best photo that I've ever taken of the Ice Age Trail. It showed people in the front ground, people in the background, got a real good idea of how the boardwalk worked there. It was a great photo.
Yeah, Game Lake was one of the most picturesque sections of the trail we had done. We had come out onto a crystal clear lake with a boardwalk, and it was one of the first experiences where I felt I was truly in a remote area of the Ice Age Trail. Basically, I had previously met Gail on one of our first Northwoods hike, and basically she told me that year that would be the year that I would finish. So we kind of had made connections, and she offered to put us up in her house.
And that worked out really good because it was just strategically located that we could do several hikes from there.
Be careful, Jared. We're at Grandfather Falls again. We're on the other side of the river. That's looking upstream. Look at the rapids going down through there. Here we go. A little cold there. This is Lincoln County. We're up on the tower. I don't know if we're going to go up anymore. Probably not. Alright, Jared, say something in the camera.
It's a little high for my taste.
Yeah. Well, you made it up this far. That's better than those guys.
My thought on that was that the Prairie River itself was fine, but it was getting to it that was a challenge. And part of it had to do with the, that was an area that maintenance was less than optimal.
Hey, it's T-Man. I'm fording the Prairie River with Gail on the Ice Age Trail. This section has been pretty rough. It hasn't been cleared that greatly. It's been kind of jungly. And let's take a look at the river. Gail's coming along. I'm actually showing my legs too for everybody who wants to see my legs for one time. You get grossed out. Right there's the Prairie River. She's coming along pretty good. There it is. I almost made it to the other side. So here we go. Ooh, those rocks are a little pointed right there. And we're through. Ooh. And here comes Gail. She's gonna make it. Doesn't it feel nice and cold? Wait until you get over here. It's a little colder on the edge. Feels good.
It's refreshing.
After a hot day of hiking, there you go.
Are actually getting almost tingly cold.
Right in there, it's cold. Do you feel it seems a little colder right at the edge, don't you think?
Yeah, a little bit.
That's
I want to figure out a way to avoid the muck here.
good luck.
Oh, right there is the cold,
Yeah, right at the edge. See, I don't know why it is. All of a sudden
it's suddenly icy.
Yeah. Well, there was this one time at the New Wood Wildlife Area that we were doing what's called a hike against. A hike against is when one person starts at one end and starts hiking, and the other person starts at the other end, and you meet in the middle and you exchange keys, and then you keep walking to the other person's car. So we did this hike, and Jared and Gail were hiking from the other end, and I was hiking from this end, and I kept hiking and hiking and hiking, and I thought I would see them pretty soon. I'd gotten halfway, and then I started getting worried. Well, what if something happened to them, or they got on some side trail and I missed them, and all that stuff. So I was getting a little worried, and it got to the point where I crossed this big beaver dam, and I was almost to the spot where the car was parked. And I get out to that road, and there Jared and Gail were.
Jared and I had decided to do a road walk as well as the segment hike, partly because of the length of the shuttle and the fact that we were not shuttling twice. We were hiking towards each other and swapping keys. When T-Man caught up with Jared and me, he had been very worried because he had misunderstood where we were going to park the car.
And it turns out that they parked the car way down the road past the next section. So that added 5 more miles to the hike.
Todd was kind of grumpy looking.
I'd forgotten my poncho, so I got a garbage bag and I cut 2 holes for my arms and a hole for my head.
A few minutes after we parted ways, me and Gail are crossing the what they refer to as the large beaver dam, and I kind of maneuvered it kind of quick, and I tried to be a gentleman and give Gail a hand to pull her up across. And
that was the day that he jumped across it, gentlemanly went back to give me a hand and landed on his face in the middle of this gap in the beaver dam.
I was kind of scared for a little bit, and after a few seconds, I realized Gail was actually screaming at the top of her lungs because she thought I was in trouble, and that made me laugh. So we got through it.
There was a day that Todd and I were trying to coordinate hiking because we wanted to work together and shuttle, and he had hiked areas from Madison to the north, and I had hiked areas from Wausau to the south, and it ended up we had a fairly long road walk down in Marquette primarily, and also some WAUSHARA County. We ended up not far from where the trailhead is at the I-39 wayside. And that day was a day that would have been a good out in the woods where it's shaded hike, but we were on a road hike. It was hot, it was very hot, and the actual truth is I hiked in long pants, and when I got home, I was actually sunburned through my pants. I could see my sock line from the sunburn.
All I know is I got sunburned from my, basically I had sunscreen on the entire upper part of my body, and I hadn't counted on my ankles getting sunburned from the heat and sunlight being reflected back up from the blacktop. So I had a nice band of burnt skin on my ankles.
We were walking down the road, and there's a cemetery, and you get past the cemetery, and there's a steeple there with a church bell inside. Evidently what had happened was they tore down the church, and they left the steeple and the bell sitting there. And so that was kind of an odd sight. So whenever I see something unusual, I have to take a photo of it and make an internet post about it. Here we go. The steeple is all that's left of the Emmanuel Lutheran Church. I guess Reverend Johnson won't be preaching to the choir anymore. So whenever I see something like that, I just have to do something. So here's a bunch more. Backpacking in the cold rain. It's the original bucket of ice water. Tish Mills. No mayor, no city council. Then who decided to put up the sign? Hey, I'm supposed to be hiking over that bridge. The moment you realize the hike isn't going as planned. The perfect gift for someone whose shit doesn't stink. The Cease Funeral Home. That's just a little redundant. Amish rollerblader. Yeah, I'm glad I got the photo, or else you wouldn't believe it. The old bucket truck still runs. It hasn't kicked the bucket yet. And sometimes I see some critters too.
I'm here with Mr. Bieber. How you doing? What are you doing today? Have you been chewing up trees? Making dams? All that good stuff? Oh yeah? You just want to move on now? Okay, you can move on. You don't look to be going too good. You're kind of hobbling there. Did a tree fall on you? Oh, are you hungry? Oh well. I'm hungry too. I want to get going here, Mr. Beaver. Is that alright with you? Is it alright if I go? You must be used to people. You're surely used to me. There you go. You gonna go in the water? Yeah, alright. We'll see you later. Bye-bye. You take it easy now. Don't chew up too many trees.
It was getting harder and harder to find people to hike with. I mean, Jared had completed the trail. Will completed the trail. Gail was counting down the miles. Tess completed the trail. All sorts of people were getting finished up. And it was harder and harder to kind of match up with people on what they needed to hike. But then some new people started posting on the 1,000 Miler Wannabe Facebook page. And that's when I started hiking with Holly Lorenz and Grumpy Bear. Yeah.
Okay, I have Grumpy Bear travels with. He's like my mascot. My grandson's not able to go on the hikes with me, so we take Grumpy Bear instead and get pictures so that he can share the adventures of Grumpy Bear on an escarpment and Grumpy Bear with erratics, and that way he can learn about what's going on at the same time.
We're hiking the Ice Age Trail. Yeah, Holly. And Grumpy right there. And we're at Balanced Rock right there. That's pretty amazing. Let's go up and take a look at it. Don't get too close to the edge. That is something. This rock. Let's get a better look at it here. Balanced Rock. At Devil's Lake. Wow. Go get Grumpy's picture taken with the rock. Right there. And is that a Grumpy Care Bear, eh? That doesn't seem too caring if he's grumpy. Care Bear countdown. Oh, that's a long ways down right there. Look at that. We've got a hike. We gotta go back to the Ice Age Trail. And we'll be hiking on the south shore of that lake right there. Going through there and then up on the bluff on the other side there. Well, say goodbye. Bye, everybody.
We made it down from Balanced Rock and we're hiking along the shore of Devil's Lake, and we've seen some sandy spots out there.
There was one spot where we had a small section of sand showing, so we did beach poses on the sand so we could look like we were at the beach.
All in all, that was a pretty good hike.
We started out, it was cold and windy, and after we got going it started raining. The wind had shredded my rain poncho.
Everything would have been fine if we had the car parked like 9 miles away. I could have gotten into the car, changed my gear, warmed up, gotten something to eat. Things would have been great.
Todd on that hike started out strong. I think he pulled something along the way and started limping, and towards the end of the hike he was in extreme pain.
We kept going and going, and I was getting worse and worse. Then, all of a sudden, we make it to this little town that has a bar. And I look over, and the parking lot is full of cars. So I'm saying, like, I'm saved. I can get into the bar. I can get warmed up. I'll be great. So I head over to the bar, walk up the ramp, and look at the door, and it says, "Closed for private party."
We probably should have stopped 5 miles sooner, but when you have your car at the far end, you got to get to where your end is.
Over the next few weeks, I was in extreme pain. I had to lay on my belly all the time, and when I sat down in a chair, I would start getting pain going down my legs. It was incredible. I started getting better, and then I decided, well, I'll go on a bike ride to test it out. That was the worst idea ever. All of a sudden, my back went boing, and it was just terrible. You know, after seeing a doctor and chiropractor and letting it mend for weeks, I decided to test it out again. This time I was doing a hike from Devil's Lake on top of the bluff on Highway 113 down to Parfrey's Glen. It was all downhill, and hopefully my back wouldn't be going downhill. So I started out and I did the hike, and it was just fine. I made it down to Parfrey's Glen. I even hiked all the way into Parfrey's Glen over some boulders back to the waterfall at the far end. So I was doing good. The next week, I did this other hike where I needed to close up a gap in Marathon County. It was a hike from the county line all the way up to Mission Lake County Park. It was a 7-mile hike, and then I biked back to my car. And that went fine. Everything was going good.
The Superior Hiking Trail introduced me to experiences off of the Ice Age Trail. And in terms of ups, downs, rocky terrain, it was probably twice as challenging as the Ice Age Trail.
So we headed out on this hike, and everything was going fine. We're just really enjoying it. We hiked through downtown Duluth on the lake walk. That was fantastic. You know, we hiked past lots of little waterfalls and stuff. It's amazing the stuff they have in Duluth. And we went up to some scenic vistas. It was just a great hike.
In terms of cities, it is the most beautiful natural trail inside a large urban area I've ever experienced.
I think we were about halfway through our day, and all of a sudden, Will starts talking about stubbing his toe and stubbing his toe. And
I think it was day 3 going up a rocky hill, and I jammed my foot inside two rocks. And to this day, waking up in the morning, I sometimes experience pain and cramping due to that sprain.
They don't even bother to clear the rocks away from the trail. Basically, if you cleared the rocks, that just exposed more rocks.
I had to call it early and allow them to finish about 5 more miles of the trail.
His injury happened right before Ely's Peak. And to me, Ely's Peak was by far the highlight of the trail.
Oh gosh, Ely's Peak was a great view. Probably one of the best I've seen, almost all the way around. It was, and you could just see everything. And I see why people think it's one of the highlights of the Superior Hiking Trail.
Hey everybody, it's T-Man. Me and Jared are at Ely's Peak. Look at the view. It's just incredible. That's the St. Louis River over there. And now it's kind of looking to the east. Coming over here, we're looking to the south more. We think our car's down in that parking lot right down there. And here's the big train. You can see the train right there. And you can see the train way over there some more. Back here, that's Martin's Peak. Just me and Jared. Do you have something to say, Jared? Something good.
Let's go get something to eat.
Let's go get something to eat after all this.
After I got home from Duluth, I found out that Cassie Colden and Sean Quinn would be hiking up in the northwestern part of the Ice Age Trail. Well, I needed that whole area, so I asked them if I could join them.
We're at the Burnett and Barron County line on the Ice Age Trail. It's been pretty rough. We're 18 miles right now. I'll leave that down. We got 2 more miles to go. 2 more miles to go. We're taking our final break. We got Cassie over here. How you doing, Sean?
Hello, everybody.
And Jared, I'll let...
World famous Jared will.
World famous there. His famous comment is, let's get something to eat. So would you like to introduce, Sean, would you like to introduce the dogs to everybody?
Here we have Dogzilla.
Dogzilla.
And Captain Fantastic.
Captain Fantastic. Right there. We're on our last
How many miles these guys got in?
break of the day. 2 more miles in an hour. We'll be back to the car. And I'll be happy.
Jared had showed up for the hike. And I wasn't sure what to think of that, but then I kind of realized that Jared was hiking the Ice Age Trail for the second time. Or as I call it, Jared's working on becoming a two-timer.
I think it was definitely at that point I realized that that was the second time I was going to hike it. If I got through that day, I think there was a lot more easy days to come, and I was just going to keep on trucking.
I went up for a second weekend hiking with Casty and Sean, and that weekend involved hiking with cows. You go through this little gate that automatically closes, then all of a sudden you're hiking in a cow pasture.
Right. 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 Come on, cow. Come on, cow. We're going. We got cows.
The dogs were getting all worked up because of the cows. So I took the lead, being the leader that I am.
Be careful. This thing away. Come on, cows. You gonna go on a hike with us? Oh, Captain Fantastic is getting really excited. She's a herding dog. Well, watch out for the cow pie.
Since Jared was hiking the Ice Age Trail for the second time, that worked out really great for me. All of a sudden, I had a really reliable hiking partner that needed to do everything. So we decided to do this backpacking trip up in the Blue Hills on Labor Day weekend.
So we're heading back into Weyerhaeuser to get the hike going, and all of a sudden, boom, crash, bang, in comes a storm, a heavy storm. So we didn't really know quite what to do, sit and wait it out or whatnot. I brought it up on radar. It didn't look like it was going away anytime soon. So we stopped into the local grocery store in Weyerhaeuser and bought up all the grocery bags and Ziploc bags and garbage. I think it was like 13-gallon bags we could find just to insulate everything. And sat in the little convenience store parking lot, and eventually we said, all right, let's go. And we headed out.
T-Man, how you doing? We're out here on North Lake in Rusk County. There's Jared right there.
I get to be the star of this movie because there's certainly no stars out tonight, is there, Tad?
No. And we just made, he put away his oven.
Chili Mac?
He's got chili mac. I've got macaroni and cheese here. No, spaghetti and meat sauce. So that's good. There it is. There he is with his little stove we were working on. And we got a nice little tarp set up. Jared brought a tarp so we could stay under. There's Jared's tent over that way. They actually have a picnic table at this site. I don't know if you can see it too well, but it's a picnic table that we're using. And my tent's over that way. You can just barely see it out in the woods. Alrighty, it's raining cats and dogs. What a Labor Day weekend this is. Hey, it's T-Man. How you doing? Got a beautiful campsite on North Lake. There's North Lake right there. The Ice Age Trail in Rusk County. You can kind of see it. There it is right there. But it's raining. It's been raining all night. Somebody's got a boat down here. They've got paddles and life vests underneath it. Here we go. Here's Jared's tent. The REI. It's the REI quarter dome? Passage. We're making breakfast. That's our breakfast. He's got a nice little tarp to save us. Yummy. You know what Jared's motto is? Let's eat. Let's eat.
We had to put back on the wet clothes and pack away the dry clothes and hope to God they would stay dry because we had one more night planned. And off we set. And for every step we took, we lost a half a step. It was just muddy and watery and uphills and downhills and over beaver dams, and the day was very long.
After a while, I was starting to get worried. Because every time you put down your foot, it slides a little bit. Every time. And that's just an unnatural movement for your knees. And I was getting all worried that I was going to get injured again. Although I was doing all right, but I was still getting a little worried about that. The other thing was happening is a few times I looked over at Jared and I noticed it just really didn't look like he was having very much fun. Hiking is supposed to be fun. It's a fun activity. Get out there, enjoy the nature, the surroundings. But it was just a miserable hike.
And we were so close to the Murphy Flowage campground, and we ran into this three older people out on a day hike, and Todd had enough, and he threw in the towel and he asked for a ride back to his car. And I couldn't necessarily disagree with his decision, because I knew that meant at least a hot shower and dry clothes before I went to bed, which would have been huge.
The reason we picked the Doolittle campground over the Murphy's Flowage campground is the Doolittle campground has a shower.
So we just had this horrible day on the trail, and we're so happy to be off the trail, actually. And I'm setting up my tent, and Todd's setting up his bunk for the night, and the camp manager swings over and he goes, "Hey."
The camp manager came over and said he needed some help. He'd cooked up a bunch of ribs and he needed some help eating them. We said, "Sure, we can help you with that."
And wow, we ate good, and we were never more grateful.
Like an hour before, we were slopping and sliding around on a wet trail, and now we're eating ribs. It's the best trail magic ever. After the Blue Hills hike, I was starting to count down the miles. I think I had less than 150 miles left. And I went out hiking almost any weekend I was open. So I went up for a weekend in St. Croix Falls. I did another weekend hiking with Will and Jared in the Northern Kettle. In November, I went up and hiked Point Beach, which would have been a better hike during the summer, but I just needed to get the segments done, and so I went and hiked them, and I was really getting to the end. All I needed was the road walk south of Weyerhaeuser and the road walk south of Cornell, and Jared and I went up and did those on one weekend in early December.
Well, I was honored to be on the celebratory hike with Todd, and of course he picked a nice snowy day for doing his final hike in Lapham Peak. But it was just great to be out there and finish the Ice Age Trail with Todd.
It was great to hike with the people and to meet everyone that, or a lot of the people that had spent time on the trail with you. And of course, I got to see Jared and Will again.
Set out kids, older people. I don't remember who all do, but there was a heck of a crowd. There was one guy, even there from those more North Country trail stuff. And we all walked on, and I don't even think we noticed that we were hiking. We had so much chit-chat on Todd's last hike, and we got to his finish, got a good picture, and on we went to the microbrew.
We headed over to the brew pub, and it was just a great occasion. My sister had a cake made for me. That was nice. And Jared and Will went together and bought me a hoodie that was embroidered. It said Todd McMahon, 1,000 Miler, with the Ice Age Trail logo on it. Yeah, that was great. Will and Jared came up to watch me get the award, and we did some hiking during the day, and then they had the big awards banquet that night. And I got my 1,000-miler award with several other people that I hiked with. There's Gail and Betty and Sean and Cassie and some other people. Will and Jared had gotten the award the year before.
So the highlight of the Ice Age conference was all my friends seemed to be joined in one area. A bunch of them to get their award. You know, see everybody get up there, get their picture taken, and the genuine smile that they had while they're up there.
We still do a lot of hiking together. In fact, we went up to the PRAIRIE hiking trail again on July 4th, and this time nobody got hurt.
Hi everybody, it's T-Man. We're at the Bald Eagle campsite on the PRAIRIE hiking trail. Here's the little beaver pond here that you come down and get your water from. We're going to take the water trail back up to the campsite. We got a bunch of day hikers out today. Beautiful meadows down here. They did see a great blue heron when they first came. Yeah, we're coming up the hill to the campsite. This is probably a fairly new campsite too because they just built this section. We got Will here, he's loading up. Gloria. And Jared.
Basically, if I had not met T-Man and Jared, I doubt I would have opened myself to hiking more than 15 miles a day. I was in and out hiker, somebody that would like to, you know, just basically hike section by section.
There it is.
All right, just for the sake.
For the second time.
Second time.
Well, how does it feel, Jared?
It's been a long year and a half, but worth every step of the way.
There you go.
There when I do it the third.
Jared's gonna hike the 1,100-mile Ice Age Trail for a third time. Any words of encouragement or wisdom?
It's not about how long the trail is. It's about how often you get out and do it and finish it up. And when you're done, don't forget to go eat. I have to say, there's been a lot of people that said, why would you do it a second time? And I know now, after finishing the second time, it's actually even more exciting to finish the second time than it was the first. And definitely worth the wait. And who just wouldn't want to get out there and hike every weekend? I mean, well, when I first started the Ice Age Trail, it was just a bunch of yellow markers, and happened to be going the same direction that I kind of would seem to be curious about, at least. And by the time I was done, I now know what an esker is. I know what hummocky terrain means. I now know what a pothole and a grinder is, a moraine, a kettle, you name it. It's taught me so much about the area that I live in, and I'm grateful for it, because how many times have you walked in the kettle moraines and not really realized what it is until you actually stop and read one of those signs.
There's one more thing I want you to think about. Remember back in the movie when Gail and I were fording the Prairie River near Parrish, Wisconsin? Gail said that the trail maintenance was less than optimal, and I said it was a little jungly getting to the river. Well, the truth is that the trails could use some help. All you have to do is hike the trail with a loppers and a bow saw. Your local chapter can assign you a mile of trail, and you go out and you clear it like 2 or 3 times a year, and you can get 95% of the trail cleared with just these 2 items. If there's a huge tree that's down on the trail that you can't get with your bow saw, just let your chapter coordinator know, and they'll send somebody in with a chainsaw to remove that tree. So you don't have to get the most huge tree with your little bow saw. If you can't work on the trail, there's still stuff you can do. You can write press releases, you can work on the website, you can shuttle hikers, you can cook. There's all sorts of things you can do to help the trail. And just remember, the North Country Trail and the Ice Age Trail, they're national scenic trails. So they're part of our national park system. So when you help the trail, you're taking care of your own little section of a national park. Now, how cool is that? So that's something to think about. I want to thank everybody for watching the movie. I'm going to end it with one last clip. This is Jared crossing a downed tree. Jared's the real star of this movie. I'm just his cameraman. So let's end it with that. Here we go.
He's crossing the tree. This is a tree crossing opportunity that can't be missed by Jared. Let's see, he's got the cluster at the end. That's going to be good. Let's see if he can get through. Yeah. Oh, he's down. Just like on the beaver dam.
Oh, that's fucking great. Oh, you got yourself a video, Todd.
Jared walking across the tree at Kettle Moraine Scenic Drive here in the Kettle Moraine. What do you say?